Hello and welcome to the A&P. I am Alex Johansson and my co-host Patrick McCallum. Patrick,
Hello, everyone. How are you getting on?
we're having logical discussions about the state of the world. Let's get into it, brother. Hey, Patrick. So you brought me a video, Immigration and Crime, from Derrick Domino. Apparently, it says on this video here, there's no link. No link? No link?
Yeah, no link whatsoever to the rising crime levels in Ireland, to mass immigration, apparently, under our government.
Couldn't possibly be any connection at all, right?
I presume you're used to those type of headlines over in your neck of the woods as well, are you?
Sometimes legacy media is less than truthful, putting a spin on things. Shocker.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it?
All right, let's see what Mr. Domino has to say.
We are constantly being told there's absolutely no link between immigration and increased crime. Well, I beg to differ. Well, it's been quite a week here in Ireland, a roller coaster week, you might say, if that roller coaster is hurtling towards hell. I'm getting to the point where I'm half thinking, considering moving to one of the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, just to get a quieter life and to live out my days in somewhere less crime-ridden. It's been a week of seemingly non-stop, vicious, violent crime on the streets of once one of the safest countries in the entire world. Now it's turning into something of a crime fest. And of course, the default position from all the politicians, the political class, and of course their mainstream media lackeys is that, well, it's just part and parcel really of living in a modern country. This is the way the modern world is. It just goes like that. And it seems to me, it's perfectly obvious, possibly to you too, that no, this is not the way it just goes in the modern world. This is not just something that springs forth randomly out of modernity. No, it's not happening in Japan, Tokyo, with over 20 million people, one of the safest cities in the world. Yeah, not happening there. It's not happening in South Korea. No, again, very, very safe. Women don't have a problem walking in the evening at night or whatever. No, perfectly safe there. And in many other parts of the world, perfectly safe.
He's actually making a really good points there.
Hasn't affected them.
There are lots of places in the United States you don't walk around at night. Lots of places. And a lot of them are inner city places, which should be safe places based on law enforcement presence and all those things, right?
Yeah.
So the
top in our capital city in Dublin. Yeah.
The top 20 cities.
Dublin was one of the safest.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But the top 20 cities in the United States are run by Democrats, and they have excessive amounts of gun control and those kinds of policies in place. The allowing of illicit substances, just the breakdown of family structure, all those things that modernity was supposed to propagate or profligate, and it doesn't seem to do that. And the less of a handle we have on things like that, it seems like culture deteriorates, society deteriorates, and there tends to be excessive violence, right?
Basically, cause and effect, as they say.
Well, cause and effect. Right, the broken window theory. If I don't fix my window, then the person across the street doesn't mow their lawn, and my neighbor leaves a dead vehicle in his driveway, and then eventually no one cares about the space that they're in, right? It seems to be that kind of thing.
No.
So
it seems to be more so in a lot of Western countries. I see. Well, as you say, Dublin used to be one of the safest cities. Well, especially inner city Dublin was one of our safer. We were one of the safer cities in Europe. Now it's gone downhill, as he's saying there, big time. Like getting one headline after another headline every single day. Knife crimes, people getting stabbed randomly in the streets. Right. We're not quite used to it. But nothing to do with immigration, apparently. Nothing at all to do with immigration.
In the way it's affected us here in Western Europe, particularly Ireland, the UK, France, Germany. No, we seem to have got a certain brand of modernity that seems to bring with it a lot of extra crime and some of the worst kinds of crime. What could possibly be the reason for this difference? Surely it's a mystery for the ages. No, it's not at all. No mystery here. You know it, and I know it. It's the proverbial elephant in the room that we're all not allowed to talk about. Because according to the government...
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about it in Ireland.
I'm going to say...
No, we're not allowed to talk about it.
It is such an inscrutable thing. There's no way that Derrick Domino could come around on this one and give us a possible answer for what the problem might be. Multiculturalism. All right, here we go.
Well, yeah, that's not working for our government. Can't figure it out yet.
Right? And your government, they're paid a pretty good amount of money, aren't they?
Yeah, she paid a lot more than your politicians, yeah.
Well, our politicians make money in other ways. We don't want to talk about that. That's
yeah. So do ours. Well, we can't talk about that either.
Let's just get back to the video. We don't you're bringing up old stuff.
The mainstream media, the elephant is not in the room at all. It's a figment of your imagination. And what's more, if you even speak about it, we may have to send the coppers around to check your thinking. Now, I know what it is, and you know what it is. It's this new mass immigration era. It's this new great grand glorious experiment which lets hoover in people from all parts of the globe, and utopia will arrive. We'll all sit around the campfire singing Kumbaya and talking about our various different takes on life, the universe, and the cosmos in general. Well, that's not how it plays out. I think everybody can see now in full technicolor that is not happening. The experiment has gone horribly wrong. Our governments are blatantly lying to us.
Here's the problem we're having with this. This is the proverbial get the toothpaste back in the tube problem, right?
Yes.
So you lie to the public and you tell them it's okay, and you lie and lie and lie. And then the public has some sort of referendum and they vote a certain party into office because that party says, we will address the issue, right? The UK has the same problem. For the last 20 years, they've been saying, we want less immigration, right? We were watching Nigel Farage earlier, who said there was an average of 30 to 40,000 up until right at the turn of the century, 2000, 2001, right? Where there was a regulated amount, 30 to 40,000 immigrants who went through the process, went to the appropriate protocol. In the last couple of years, they've had millions come in, not vetted, right? And they're failing to assimilate, and they're affecting the economy as a whole, right? And this is the same thing, right? If you don't get a handle on this,
exactly the same issue.
Yeah, if you don't get a handle on the situation, and by size of country, it's been like the United States has had 10 to 12 million in the last 4 years, right? So, and I think as a percentage, it's about the same as Ireland, and I think the UK is actually in a much worse boat.
UK, yeah, roughly, yeah. And
So,
not only are we leading these people in, you're saying that they don't want to integrate into our society. They don't want to mix with us. They want to bring their own culture with them and keep their own culture with them.
you ever heard of the great state of Texas?
Yes.
So there's a place called Austin, Texas, and Austin, Texas is the capital of Texas. During the pandemic, a lot of Californians realized that since they were working remotely, they could functionally live wherever they wanted. So there was a massive influx of Californians to the Austin, Texas area, to the point where, and there's a lot of failed policies in the state of California, right? So a lot of Texans and a lot of those in Austin would put out signs that say, don't bring your California to Texas. We don't want your gun control and your other weirdness. We just don't want it here, right? But the thing is in Ireland and in the UK, the constituency has voted consistently to stop the flow of people, like stop it. And for some reason, the Dáil and the Commons in the UK, our Department of Homeland here in the United States, like for some reason, those that represent us aren't getting the message in some fashion. And like he said, we're being told we're wrong and you're stupid and this is working. But if I feel less safe, I'm a big fella. but I feel less safe walking on the street, right? And I'm in a
Yeah.
country where I can carry a gun, right? And I feel
Yeah, you
less
can
safe,
imagine how we feel over here.
right?
How we feel over here.
Yeah, you got to throw hands, and the other guy's hands might have a knife in it, and that's not a good way to go. I don't want to fight a guy with a knife. If I'm going to fight a guy with a knife, I'm going to fight that guy with a gun. Be like, I've got a gun, I've got a knife. Well, you're going to lose. You're going to lose in the most horrific
we don't
way
have that option.
possible. Right, you're going to end this fight with a couple extra holes in you that you didn't want to have. You know, so but I don't understand why the political class and those who have influence over that class are choosing to deny the people the thing they are unequivocally voting for. They're saying we want a thing, and that thing is a lack of our culture being destroyed by those on the outside, right? All right.
Yes. The message doesn't seem to be registering whatsoever. Keep glossing it over and saying we're all happy all happy here.
Right. So this is a clip he's showing 28 November 23 from the $. See what they say here.
Yes.
I really would ask people to try and avoid connecting crime with migration. It's not right.
No, it's not right. There's absolutely no link, and if you think there is, well, then you must be some kind of a racist bigot. Well, as far as I'm concerned, and I think most normal, sensible people are concerned, I just don't care what the mainstream media or the political elite call me anymore. They can call me all the hurtful names and terms they like. I know what I see with my own eyes, and everybody in this society knows what they see and what's really going on. But let me illustrate my point. Let's take the past week in Ireland. Let's just take a snapshot of modern Ireland at the start of 2025. Let's have a look at the last 7 days and see if you think this is typical of Ireland, if you think this is good for Ireland and Ireland is moving in the right direction. Well, we kicked off the week on Sunday with a 29-year-old Brazilian man going berserk with a knife and stabbing multiple people, 3 very seriously. They had to be hospitalized.
You said we're going to cover this one?
Yeah, no, we covered it. Remember Stony Batter?
Oh,
remember
right. That was the RTE thing in episode 1, right? Yeah, okay. But literally our first piece, yeah.
Yeah. That's the start of the week. It goes downhill from there, by the way. Just press.
You watched this video before I did?
No, I'm actually watching it with you, but I already know the headlines.
Oh, okay.
I think it was strange. Actually, listen to radio.
Didn't seem to get to the west coast of the United States. Here we go.
And were very close to being murdered. It then transpired that this Brazilian man was out on bail for drugs offences, and he'd already been issued with a deportation order that the state hadn't bothered to action. Also on Sunday in Cork, a woman in her 20s was stabbed by a man in his 40s, allegedly a Romanian man, in her own home and while she had a baby in the house. Moving on to Tuesday morning at approximately 6:30 a.m., a woman in Galway, whilst out walking her dog before work, was viciously attacked and assaulted, allegedly stabbed multiple times, by what is alleged to be a man with a foreign accent. As of now, he still has not been apprehended. We then move on to Friday.
Do you know how quickly that would have been on the news if it was a native Irish born?
Yeah.
They would have been live on the scene. Live on the scene. Oh, it looks like Michael stabbed him up. What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It would have been straight away on RT News. It would have been everywhere. But there's always that, as you remember, we kept saying there's always that.
Well, it's in support of the narrative. Anything, even at a small percentage, seems to just blast its way through, right?
Yeah.
Friday, which was Valentine's Day, but it wasn't very romantic for one unfortunate Irishman in Limerick. He happened to interact with Syrian-born Muadar Friha, who decided he had, quote, threatening eyes, then proceeded to stab him in the stomach, the arms and the thighs, causing grievous injury but luckily not killing him. He was rushed to hospital and thankfully he has survived. Which brings us back to the very early hours of Sunday morning, just off Grafton Street in the centre of Dublin City. Well, this happened. A brawl took place on the street outside a nightclub after it closed, involving, well, you don't need me to fill in the gaps, you can see it for yourself.
We can see by the video who was involved, really, can't we?
We do live in different times, but it seems when certain people start brawling, it's very quick that the knives and machetes are produced.
Were the people who committed that crime apprehended, or do you know?
There's very little news on it, except for those videos that are circulating all around social media.
So the people on the street can see what's happening. Was
Yes.
the Gardaí not informed, given descriptions of the people who had knives and machetes out in the street outside that club? So
They have yet to release a statement.
why? Any
That's
idea?
only, that's,
No TD,
no
no,
idea, the
member of the
Gardaí.
council, nobody gives a shit what's happening in their
no.
local area? Just fuck you, we
Yeah,
don't
they
care?
said they're investigating the incident. That's all you get from the Gardaí.
Oh, got it. The get
Apparently-
fucked method.
apparently
That's
it's very-
amazing.
Apparently, even with this video, it's very hard to identify people. For some reason,
Uh-huh.
very hard to identify people, even with a 1080p video.
Patrick, if it was you, they'd be on your
Thursday.
doorstep in hours. Hours.
Hours, I said they'd be waiting for me even before I get home. You would say.
And not for a cup of tea. It wouldn't be a cup
Oh
of tea.
no! Oh no!
It would be silver
It wouldn't be a
bracelets
cup
and
of
a
tea,
trip
chat and
downtown.
biscuit. Yeah, there'll be no biscuits even involved.
No biscuits. That's not very Irish. You
No,
should have
biscuits.
biscuits.
Oh no! Oh,
Oh,
you'd be long chatting without the tea and biscuits.
right. I have a very important question for you because
Actually, they're investigating the incident anyway.
well, I've been
they're
meaning to
investigating
ask you, what is the best tea? Like,
Me personally, I like Barry's tea actually.
is that a black tea?
Yeah, it's a black tea. Yeah, it's an Irish tea.
Okay, not a green tea.
Jeez, wait a minute. Listen. I like green tea. Don't get me wrong. I like green tea. But if it comes down to it, I like a nice cup of Barry's tea. I know it sounds very, very traditionally Irish, but I actually like Barry's tea.
Well, it's almost St. Patrick's Day. On St.
Yes.
Patrick's Day, so Americans have a very strange view of St. Patrick's Day, right?
Okay.
We don't particularly have any idea about snakes and St. Patrick and all those things. We just think it's a really good reason to wear green and drink. So
Yes,
on St. Patrick's
we
Day,
think the same, by the way.
well, you do that all the time because you're Irish. But do
Yeah.
you know why whiskey was invented? You know why whiskey was invented?
Oh no! Go on.
Well,
Go on.
it's so the Irish wouldn't take over the world, right?
Actually,
We had to
God,
slow them down.
that's-
We had
that's
to
a
slow
really-
those
actually, that's
gales
really
right on
nice.
down. Huh?
Yeah, that's a really, really nice. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pleasant. It's pleasant. But for St. Patrick's Day, are you going to drink green tea in appreciation of St. Patrick and all the greenness that is the gale?
I'm going to drink a lot of Guinness.
Oh, Guinness. Okay. Oh, green enough,
Oh,
I
yeah.
suppose.
I'm not going to have tea on St. Patrick's Day. That 1,000 Irishmen would turn over in their grave if I started drinking tea on St. Patrick's Day.
Right. So it's like a wake and bake Irish version with beer, huh?
Yes.
I love it. All
There we
right.
go. I sent you a picture there of what Barry's tea looks like.
Oh, okay. I'll check that out later. Here we go.
Yeah, check it out there. Yep.
And indeed used, resulting in this case in the death of asylum seeker, Nigerian asylum seeker, Kuham Babatunde, by what seems, at least from the evidence of the video, to be some fellow African heritage individuals. It later became known that Mr. Babatunde had been in Italy and been refused asylum there on the basis that he had committed rape and various other crimes. Somehow, he'd managed to just up sticks and move over to Ireland and claim asylum here, and was currently living at the time in Ballyogan, iPass Centre off the Irish taxpayer, of course. Something that will, I am sure, have come as a great shock to many.
What is an iPass Center, in case the listening audience doesn't know?
International Protection Centre, my iPass Centre. So if you arrive in Ireland, as I was explaining before, and you go for asylum, then I'm running away from my country because X, Y, and Z. You come to Ireland, you claim asylum.
Mhm.
You put in an iPass Centre. You're housed, you're fed, you're found, as they say. Everything's paid for. Plus, you get an extra couple of bob, as they say, in your pocket as well on top. So, and off you go until you're called for your interview. You're called for multiple rounds of interviews to make sure your claim is legitimate and so on. But that could take 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, depends. At the moment, our system's so blocked up, people are just sitting there for years.
So is the iPass
Apparently this-
Center, are the folks that are in that center, are they allowed to go interact with the public, or are they?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So before the vetting
It's not
process
prison.
is completed, before we know if they're safe for the Irish public, we're going to let them walk around and just interact with folks?
Yes. And also give them some money as well in their pockets as well, just in case they get,
Is the
decide what
iPass
have a
Center
beer.
something that's... Is the iPass something... Is it a building that was...
No. When they talk about iPass centers, there are a lot of community centers, a lot of derelict buildings and so on. We're all turned into iPass centers all over Ireland. So it's not just one center as such. Think of it as hostels and camps all over Ireland.
If I go town to town and I look at a police station or a fire station, I look at those buildings and I know that those are what those do, right? So your Gardaí stations are going to look like this. Your fire stations are going to look like this.
Yes.
Right. But an iPass Center isn't going to be a recognizable type of building. It's going to be whatever the government...
It can be any building.
Okay. So those buildings are then rented from, I'm assuming, whoever is the landlord of that building? Or does the government buy it out completely?
No, what happens usually with iPass centers, say if they go to an apartment block, they go to the landlord with a really, really good deal of, if you put in X, Y, and Z, we'll pay you 100 plus euros per day per person if you house these guys in your building. I'm using a very broad stroke.
Right.
Now the landlord looks at these figures going, wait a minute, Mary down the road is only paying me 1,500 a month for that flat. I can get 1,500 a day if I put 15 guys in there and the same flat. So, hence the reason why we have a lot of housing issues in Ireland. There's a lot of landlords, and by the way, a lot of TDs in Ireland are landlords, have taken up this deal and made iPass centres everywhere. In every town, there's not a town and village in Ireland that doesn't have at least 1 or 2 iPass centres.
So you're being invaded, and your government is forcing the invasion upon you because they're landowners functionally, which makes the Irish public a bunch of serfs. This sounds familiar.
That's what it feels like,
This sounds really familiar.
Yes.
Didn't this happen
before
in your country?
This had kind of happened. Yeah, it happened over a century ago. They had we kind of got rid of them a century ago, but looks like our own are helping the process along again.
The Dáil and your upper house have a bunch of landlords who are getting lots of taxpayer money to house people that aren't from your country, that they let walk around and put money in their pocket. They're not producing anything for your economy. They don't contribute to the GDP. And there are a percentage of them that stab, maim, kill members of the community, to include children.
Yes.
And you still allow those in the Dáil and the upper house to continue to make these decisions against what the constituency of what the Irish public wants.
No, we had an election there recently enough. You know what the scary thing about it was? The same people who've been doing this to us for the last couple of years got elected again. They got an hour majority, I mean, thanks to independence, but people still voted for Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil again. after all of this, which is more shocking to me than anything else.
And the song they've been singing is the song of hate for the people.
Oh, there's dozens of videos like what Dominic just showed going around social media. And as you can see, it's apparently very hard to identify these people. Even though, even on YouTube, we could
1080p
identify them.
video with a machete in their hand outside of a club.
Yeah.
But we don't know
In
who
Dublin,
they are.
by the way, in an area where it's covered in CCTV cameras, apparently it's very hard to find them. Shocking.
It's just a ghost in the system. Okay, well, back to Mr. Domino. Here we go.
Many people. Because just only recently in an interview, the new head of Ireland's Garda Immigration Bureau, Detective Chief Superintendent Aidan Minnock, said there was no such thing as a, quote, unvetted migrant to Ireland. He went on to assure us all that every
Yeah, there's no such thing as unvetted males in Ireland.
So, as an Irish citizen, have you encountered someone who may or may not have been vetted? Like every day? Every day.
Many times. Yes.
So if you go near any of those iPass centers, the odds are high, since their vetting process isn't done and they're walking around with taxpayer money in their pocket to do with whatever they want and just walk around your neighborhoods all day.
Yes. Right? But apparently, according to this chief detective
Deputy
in Ireland,
Chief Superintendent Aidan Minnock, said that everyone coming to Ireland seeking international protection is fingerprinted and identified.
Yes, we know exactly where they are.
Well, no, that's not what it says. It says that they're fingerprinted and identified. That doesn't mean they're vetted. That isn't what that means at all. It just means that they got some ink on their fingers and their name is whatever their name is. That doesn't mean anything. That means nothing, right? It's like a catch and release program for angry sea bass. That's not good. Oh, right.
That's not good at all.
No.
Everyone coming to Ireland seeking international protection is fingerprinted and identified. And if you believe all that, I've got some magic beans you might be interested in. I'm sure you'll agree quite...
Hey, if those magic beans make Barry's tea, I'm sure you're down, right?
Yeah.
It's a
or Guinness, don't
busy
forget
week
Guinness.
here in once peaceful, sleepy Ireland. I'd like to give a couple of honourable mentions, or should I say dishonourable mentions, to the person who stabbed Father Paul Murphy, a Catholic priest in Galway, a little while ago. He pleaded guilty on Monday to the offence. He can't be named for legal reasons, as he is 17, it's believed at the moment, but it is alleged the perpetrator of this crime is, shall we say, new to the parish. Also on Friday, an Indian man, Visak Rajesh Liha, seen here, purportedly 25 years old, in my estimation, that's 25 going on 50, pleaded guilty to the abduction or attempted abduction from an apartment of a 5-year-old child. So there you go, folks. 1 week in modern Ireland. It seems not that long ago, any one of those stories, any one of them individually, would have been headline news and talked about for weeks. Now it seems they pop up and disappear almost every day.
We have a problem.
Yeah.
So
no, he's right. I remember.
No. Well, he's right about that. But the bigger issue is that the news is now a business and it's a 24-hour cycle. Right? So when news is a business... Go ahead.
But we don't have the same kind of we don't have to say our state broadcast, RT, is not on a 24-hour cycle. They're on from 6 to 7 every day.
Right, I understand that.
But he is right. Any one of those stories over the last decade or so, any one of them would be
massive
on top of the news. Would be no shadow of a doubt.
Right. Well, and you couldn't get away from it on social media. There would be, this dude did this thing, and it was violent and it was bad. Right.
Yeah.
And all the reporters in the area would be down at the courthouse, and they'd be talking to the TDs, and they'd be interacting in a very aggressive fashion. What are you doing about this guy who committed crimes against Irish citizens? Right?
Oh, yeah.
But in the United States, we have a 24-hour news cycle. MSNBC, CNN, we have all these legacy medias, and all day long, it's 24 hours. That's a lot of time to fill. So there's a lot of filler in there, right? There's a lot of chaff, shall we say, that it's not wheat, it's all chaff, right? It's just a bunch of
like
noise.
the local farmers market or whatever else thrown in there, yeah.
Well, and I don't mind. You know what? I like the locals farmers market. I'll go down and get some good tomatoes or some corn. Oh my God, they have amazing white corn here. It's the best, right? From the Central Valley, it is literally the best corn in the world. It is the best. Every couple of weeks I go down to the farmers market. Oh yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Corn.
What's that?
Right.
Never?
I've never had white corn.
Oh, you haven't lived, bro. You have not lived. It's amazing. It's like it's a sweet corn. It's maize functionally.
I've had sweet corn, but it's yellow. Never had white.
Oh yeah, it's
the same thing. I wonder.
Probably genetically slightly different, at least as far as the coloration of the corn goes. Once you shuck it, right? So.
Oh, that sounds nice though.
Doesn't it though? In fact, I think tonight I'm gonna have a little veggie cook-off. We're gonna do some squash and some broccoli and some asparagus. Got some artichokes in there. Oh, it's gonna be amazing. Anyway, so
that sounds nice.
Right? I love artichokes. They're so good. Right. So we'll get back to the point. But the point is there's a lot of chaff, right? And the things that should be talked about don't seem to be in the forefront, right? There are people who are committing violent crimes against the citizenry based on an inability or specifically they don't want to assimilate into the society that they're in, right? They don't want to take on the values and all the things that it means to be in a G7 type country, right? They just don't.
Yes.
But when you have this amount of violence and negative impact on your citizenry, I don't know why it isn't covered literally every day. Like he's saying, why are these things not? It should be, we have had these 10 absolutely horrific violent crimes committed by these 10 people. Right? This isn't journalism. This is bullshit.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Get to the bottom of why the thing is broken. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the reporting class has become a posh class, I guess you'd say. Right?
Oh, definitely. They always talk down to us mere plebeians.
Oh, yeah, are mere mortals, right? So there's a certain kind of fame now involved in that, which means that it wasn't like back decades ago when we were kids, when journalism was a blue-collar investigative function. We found out things that were wrong and let the people know, and we just don't have that now. Anyway, tangent's done. No. Tangent's done.
Tangent done. There we go.
But of course, we are told, we are relentlessly bludgeoned with the narrative that immigration and open borders has absolutely no link in crime, especially serious crime. And anyone who thinks otherwise is simply just a racist and a bigot. So what do you think? Do you think there's a link? Do you think there's a correlation? As far as I'm concerned, that week should have been a quiet week. It should have been a quiet week because all of those perpetrators shouldn't be here and, until recently, wouldn't be here. So I say this to the government and the mainstream media, with all due respect, don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
That is a good way of, he is dead right when he's saying that. That's what we feel like, that they are, as he said, as he put it, he is pissing down our back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then this is not raining. Definitely.
Well, it's just the height of disrespect. You are lying in my face. You're lying in my face. And again, like I talked about before, it's where do you put the door? Right?
Yes.
If there was a TD who is in their house that voted for all these policies and told you that you're a liar, I guarantee you they don't have foreign nationals in their house, right? So at least that door is a door
Yeah.
they're not going to go through, right? And they probably live in a gated community, which means there's another door they're not going to get through, right? But where do you put the door?
Yeah.
Do you put it at the city line? Do you put it at the county line? That door should be at your border. That border represents a difference in ideological function, right? The Irish people have a culture that is X. Other people have a culture that is Y. If you want to be part of Irish culture, you need to get with thing X and not disband thing Y. Be proud of your heritage from wherever you may be from.
Yeah.
It's a thing to be proud of. My people did this, but
Yes.
now I'm an Irishman.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to incorporate that and become assimilated into the society that I'm in.
Of course, the religion of peace, as we all know that what it is, the religion of peace, doesn't seem to play well with others. No matter what country it seems to go to, they seem to bring their own unique take on society. Yes. It's okay to stone people to death and, marry people who are very, very young. But they bring all these interesting ideas, say to the likes of Ireland or any Western G7 country. And
well, a lot of that is they haven't accepted modernity. Right? Modernity has indicated that there's a better way to do it. Right?
Yes, but they won't accept it. They never will. They flee a third world country because of all these ideals have turned their country into a third world country. Bring them over to the Western countries, and then are surprised that they're not integrating well, because they just, as you said, they just don't want to integrate. They don't.
No. Why should they? They don't have to. They're not being forced to.
No.
But the other side of that one is I was watching an interview on trigonometry. A gentleman was saying that it's a clannishness problem. Jamie Gould's Heretics as well. There's a clannishness. A lot of the issues they're having in the UK with the grooming gangs have to do with a lot of first cousin marriages, right? So if a family has 10 or 12 children, right, and then they marry their first cousins, then they're interlocking with a lot of people who have a mindset that is outside not only the UK's culture, but outside what is appropriate in modernity. Right?
Yes.
There's a reason that you don't marry your first cousin. There's some really good genetic reasons that you don't do that, Yeah. So, well, in places like Iceland have that problem because there's only 300,000 people. They've had to order a bunch of fellas from off the island to, fix their breeding stock problem. They actually have an application in Iceland where you can check it. Yeah, there's an application to see if the person you want to date is closer related genetically to you. And you can be like, oh no, sorry, we can't date because, we're actually first and a half cousins. So.
Yes. Wow. Actually, I never thought of it that way, actually, with Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But Iceland's a beautiful, beautiful country. And we won't talk
That's
about the United
country
States
we
trying to
really
buy Greenland. All right. So the next thing I wanted to bring up was...
the Dutch got very upset over that one, by the way.
What's that now?
Denmark? I said the Dutch got very upset over that one.
Oh, Denmark. It was Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
Denmark, yeah. So, and then Denmark decided in retaliation to put Greenland's symbol on their flag now. They've updated their flag so to rep some Greenland, the 50 to 60,000 folks that live there. So
I was kind of why does he want to buy an island? That's fair enough.
Well, it's an absolutely massive island, and there's a lot of resources, and there's
I understand.
a lot of things on that island that we put there during and after World War II that we probably shouldn't have. Yeah. We made some...
There's no take backsies.
Mistakes were made. But mistakes are always made. Well, and I think that's part of society, right? If you say, hey, time of war, we made mistakes, forgive us or not, we're going to do our best to address the issue, right? So anyway, so the next thing I wanted to bring up was Kash Patel advancing. We have a Timcast IRL.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some issues, and I'll let it play. and then we'll talk about how committees and subcommittees work. So
Yes, I'm going to have actually a lot of questions there. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
From the post-millennial, breaking Senate Judiciary Committee advances Kash Patel as FBI director, will face vote in closed Senate executive session. No, hold on there, gosh darn minute. My understanding is that the committee advances the nominee, and then it goes to a floor vote, and then we have our appointee. Libby, what's going on?
What's going on? Oh, with the Senate Judiciary? So, yeah, so the way it works, and I was talking to my staff about this because we were all a little like, what's going on? But so
Is that quite common in the United States to have closed session like that?
So when you're dealing with NIH or you're dealing with high-end issues that require certain kind of clearances, right? So if you require
the FDA and so on.
Right. So if it requires a secret or a top secret clearance to hear the information so they can vet it, so they can make an appropriate decision, those on the subcommittees and the committees in the House of Representatives and the Senate will have the appropriate clearances to see the information so they can manipulate it to make a decision. Right.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. That makes sense. So that's why they're having a closed session. So
maybe
makes sense.
Maybe it's why, but they're going to get into it. So here we go.
Okay.
Hearings advances him to the next round, and in this case, that's an executive session, which is a closed session. And after the executive session, they will vote on cloture, which means no more debate, and then it will go for a full vote. Right.
So going to a vote of cloture means that there's no more debate, right? However, if your team has more people on that board, then they can do what's functionally a filibuster. Do you know what a filibuster is?
I've seen it in. I watched The West Wing.
Okay, so a filibuster is when a senator talks and talks and talks and talks and reads a book and does whatever, just makes words, and they literally can't stop talking, right? Because once there's a significant break in the talking, then they can bring that individual's time to a close and then get on to another individual, right? So a filibuster isn't going to be just one individual. It's going to be an individual that passes it off to another individual that passes it off to another individual. But to move to that cloture, right, if you don't have enough people to vote for cloture, then you will not get to the vote to stop the deliberations for whatever you're deliberating, right? So you can jam up the process by failing to vote for cloture, which means that it's functionally still open for discussion, even though no one's going to vote for it to like the body isn't going to vote for it to continue.
That's funny. We actually don't have that in Dáil Éireann. You're allotted, say, 3 minutes of time, and that's it.
Well, you
can't filibuster.
Right. Okay. In the House of Representatives, they'll be like, okay, so the representative from District 5 of Wyoming, right? I don't even know if they have 5 districts in Wyoming. It's the least populous state. District 5 of Florida. I'm pretty sure they've got a 5, right? So the representative from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes, and then they give their statement, and then they either hand their time off to someone else or they close up their speech and they hand it back, right? Robert's Rule of Order, right? So then we recognize the individual from Maine, the gentle lady from Iowa, right? And we just go around and whoever wants to, they get put on the docket to have time to talk, right? The Senate doesn't work quite like that because they can filibuster and they can jam up the time. An individual in the Senate is recognized to talk, and then they talk, and when they're done talking gentlemanly, right, they hand it back. But then they can choose to filibuster based on the type of Senate hearing that they're having, right? There's certain kind of hearings where they can do that, and there's other ones where it's super fixed. Just depends on the kind of hearing that you're in. Yeah, but that is minutia of that house, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But if they don't go to the vote of cloture, then the discussion doesn't close, and they can just sit there and look at each other and say, well, what are we going to do? Have another vote of cloture? Well, no, because it's just going to be the same vote that it just was. So whoever's in control of that committee, if they want to, they can fail to go to that vote of closure, and then it's just open-ended, right? But the thing is that I am unsure based on that if they can go to another subject or if they have to stay there and just look at each other in the meeting. I'm not sure how that works. We have other business. We haven't
Wow.
gone to cloture on the first issue, right?
Oh, wow.
So
No wonder it's so
depending upon
jammed up.
right, there's so many rules, like procedural rules.
Yeah.
It's like Robert's Rules of Order on crack. They actually have an expert in the House and the Senate that will check them if they do it incorrectly. They'll be like, you know, point of order, based on this rule,
Wow.
you can't do that thing. Right? Yeah, it gets
Right.
really, really silly. So here we go.
So why is it taking so long to get cash?
Why is it taking? Is maybe the Epstein list? Maybe no. We were
Okay,
talking about that
so
before the show.
The
yeah.
legitimate,
But there's a lot of debate surrounding cash, and there was a lot of debate surrounding Tulsi as well. But I think that, and didn't Tulsi have a closed
Yeah,
door
I believe Tulsi was confirmed 52 to 48 on the Senate floor.
Closed session as well.
Yeah,
Really?
the
Yeah, she
closer
did.
session
Yeah,
as
I remember
well.
that's when I was like, "What's going on?" And
yeah,
then
because
Yeah,
in
no,
closed
we don't get to
session, they're
see
like, please tell us you're not going to do these things.
Right. And I think the closed session also has to do with, in the case of Cash and Tulsi, I think it has to do with the incredibly sensitive nature of the things that that they need to discuss. You know, I mean, that they're like super confidential.
Well,
You can say whatever you
fair,
want in there. Too.
but is Cash going to release the Epstein list?
That's what he said he's going to do. I was actually listening to it was a PBD podcast with Glenn Beck, and he said within 10 days.
From the post millennial
Yes.
breaking. I mean, come on.
I don't know.
So PBD is Patrick Bet David, and that's valuetainment. So
Because I
Okay.
think I think they've been planning for stuff like this, and they got people around them. They got people around them ready for the smoke. I think they're ready for the smoke.
kind of feel like the empire has been crushed.
Yeah.
That with Donald Trump's victory this time around, there's just it's you've gotten rid of most of the infrastructure, and all that's left are remnants of the deep state that still somewhat are operating. You know how it is, like after World War II, they were like, this man was living in the jungle and didn't know the war was over for 5 years.
Yeah.
He's still fighting to
Joseph
this day.
Beuys, the artist Joseph Beuys, who had this whole crazy thing. But I think the other thing too, you're talking about the empire has been crushed. I think there's something to watch out for that we need to be careful about, and that is the tendrils. The tendrils that have gone so deep into everything.
Yeah, I mean, look,
the
those are still
tendrils
arrogant.
that made it so that the Department of Agriculture withheld free school lunches because just from schools that wouldn't let boys and girls bathrooms. And that's the
Wow.
yeah. So the Department of Agriculture was denying money to schools that weren't recognizing trans issues, and a lot of those were Republican type areas where they're like, no, boys are boys and girls are girls. We don't recognize whatever this other thing is we want to keep our kids safe, and we don't want your school lunches if you're going to push ideology down our throat, right? And then Trump also made an executive order functionally that said boys are boys and girls are girls. And then he went on to say that a lot of that had to do with Title IX. I don't know if you remember the Leah Thomas, Riley Gaines thing, where there was a 6 foot plus tall male from the University of Pennsylvania. Leah Thomas as a giant male person with obvious male genitalia swimming against females, right?
Yes.
Right. So
Yes, I remember that. That was ridiculous.
it was grievous. So what he did is he said, look, Title IX is put in place to protect our female athletes, right? So trans athletes were getting tons and tons of scholarships that should have gone to biological females. So he had an issue with that. But again, the schools were like, we're not going to recognize your ideology. Therefore, the Department of Agriculture did not give them funding. They're like, you don't get to feed your children from this program we've specifically set up for children who don't have enough money to eat food to make sure that they can get breakfast and lunch at school.
Wow. Just to force a policy through their blackmailing schools.
Functionally. So
Pretty
when I
much
was
what
a kid,
they're blackmailing schools.
yeah. So when I was a kid, I would get breakfast at school, right? I'd show up, I would get dropped off early from the bus because the bus got to the bus stop at like 6:30. Get to school at 7.
Yeah.
Class didn't start till like 7:35. and then I would get breakfast, right? So for the
Oh,
first,
that's nice, actually.
yeah, so kindergarten through about 4th grade, my parents didn't have a lot of money, right? We weren't doing that good till about fourth or 5th grade. My dad got a better job and right? So he was making more money. So I had to pay every day for breakfast 35 cents. 35
Okay.
cents for breakfast, right? And
Wow,
that was
that's brilliant. That's
well, right, but that amount, even that amount, was a subsidized amount because of the amount of money that was going from the Department of Agriculture to ensure that the school lunch programs and the breakfast programs were in place, right? So 35
nice.
cents for my breakfast, and I think it was 75 or 85 cents for lunch. Whereas before, since my parents were under a certain income bracket, I got we had to fill out a form at the beginning of the year, and I got breakfast and lunch. And then in 4th or 5th grade, we didn't fill out the form because my parents were over that threshold. Because my mom had gone back to
Right.
work and my dad was working, so we had 2 incomes. And,
Yeah, you did better for ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, we got better, so we contributed on the other side. But for those first 4 or 5 years I'm going to school, from kindergarten to like 4th grade, like the school was making sure I had enough calories to get through the day, right? And
Wow.
this is like beyond the Prussian model for schools where we, bells ring and then you move because bells ring because we're trained to work in factories, right? All that
Yes.
stuff aside, right? Oh, and it's been shown that you can only really integrate new knowledge that you don't care about for a couple hours a day before your brain's like, I don't care about this. Get out of here with that. You know what I'm saying?
Brain goes bye-bye. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I'm
But
studying
that's
something,
absolutely.
go ahead.
Well, that's not. By the way, that's circling back there to school lunches. That's an absolutely fantastic idea. Only very few schools in Ireland actually do that. Very few.
Well, if kids don't
We
have
don't actually do
calories, they
school
can't
lunches.
function, right? Their bodies
Yes.
are growing. If you don't feed their body, then their mind's going to be worthless. It's just not going to
Yeah.
go well, right? You don't
I think
generate neural
me
pathways.
personally, I think personally, school lunches should be brought in across the board to all the schools in Ireland. I think it'd be, as you say, food makes brain work better. You know what I mean?
Right. You
Common
can
sense.
generate, you can more easily generate neural pathways if you're if you have appropriate nutrition and hydration. If your body is working more
Yes.
optimally, then you can do everything more optimally, up to and including critical thinking, problem solving, and all those things that you should be learning in school. Here are problems, solve
Yes.
them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then you get to college,
Yeah.
right, where you need to wrestle with moral and ethical issues and figure out what your worldview is and what's functional,
Mm.
right? When you're taught what to think, not how to think, you end up with a ton of cognitive dissonance. Because like Derrick
Yes.
Domino is saying, you see a thing. Like, you're standing on the table peeing on my back. You're telling me it's raining. You can get fucked.
Yeah.
I've solved the problem.
Yeah.
You're peeing on my back. Stop.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's just the height of disrespect for TDs to
Yeah.
stand up and say, well, there's no correlation. What evidentiary value have
None.
you presented from the Dáil to the citizens of Ireland to show us that this isn't the case? You haven't.
Yes. Like, even when you see videos of it happening, and even when you physically see it with your own 2 eyes, they're trying to tell everyone in the world, oh, no, there's nothing like that in Ireland. We're all peaceful here. You can only cover it up for so much until the headlines do eventually come out.
Right, but the problem is does Ireland die in the process? Because the Dáil and your upper house have decided, no, it's not happening here. Well, it's obviously happening here. Derrick Domino's video had over 58,000 views. I guarantee you by the end of the week, it's going to have over 100,000 views. Right? He's well-spoken, and he's saying things that are the truth. Not a your truth, my truth thing, right? But the truth. The truth is that people who came from other places who were unvetted committed violent and heinous crimes against Irish citizens. And even if they committed those crimes against those who just happen to also be in Ireland, it's still not appropriate.
No, still not appropriate. No. That was the point. Is apparently we're not vetting anyone coming into Ireland. We know it. The whole world knows it.
Well, in the last episode, we were talking about your border with Northern Ireland. Not really regulated or checked.
Oh.
All right. Well, we have gone far afield. Let's get back to the Timcast IRL.
Yes.
pulling out of the DEI through the Department of Education. That's the pulling out of the gender ideology.
I like
race theory.
the tendrils analogy, but I think we can go for something more disgusting like botfly larvae
Okay,
that has burrowed and embedded its seeds under your skin.
that's horrifying.
That's so gross, dude. That's so
I like the tendrils thing because I think octopuses are cool.
I get your point.
I like
the
it 'cause
thing
it's
is, it
gross.
goes beyond just
Fungi.
it goes beyond just in Washington D.C. Remember, USAID was working with foreign nations all over the world, and there's a lot of foreign nations that have their governments.
Do you know what percentage USAID was of the entire budget for the United States?
I said less than, was it 0.2%?
Yes, it's 0.2%. And they found
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars in 0.2%, right? And they got into Social
Wow.
Security, and Donald Trump was actually talking about it. Apparently, there are people in the United States who are over 200 years of age, but many, many, many millions over the age of 120,
No, that's a really good age. Fair juice to them. I think that's
right?
absolutely fantastic.
Right?
Yeah, they've definitely found. Do you have the Fountain of Youth over there by any chance?
Well, it's not in Florida. The fellow was looking for it. Fellow was looking for it.
Yeah,
and
it's
never
definitely
found
not in Florida. Yeah, it's definitely not in Florida.
Right, but I mean, it's so unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
You can anybody over 120 years of age, you just chop all of them right on off, right? Like, get out of here with that. Like, yeah, that person doesn't exist, right? And
It's actually happened. It's actually happened in Ireland a few times.
yeah,
It
what were you
actually
telling
has
me about
happened over here, yeah.
they tried to take a dead guy to go get his check for the dole or whatever?
Oh, yes. I actually have to send you on that news article. Yes, it was three of them apparently were out having a jolly good time in one of their flats, and the guy happened to pass away. So what they did was they instead of ringing the Gardaí or an ambulance or doing the logical things you would do,
right?
They decided to get their buddy, dress him up, put a little hoodie on him and jacket and the whole lot.
Oh, it was
and
an
carry
Irish
him
weekend
down
at
to the
Bernie's.
Carry him down to the post office to sign on for his social welfare.
Oh my God!
The lady behind the counter did realize there was something not quite right with the scenario. So she said, "I'll be back there in a moment," and she rang the Gardaí, saying,
Nice.
"You better come down here."
We've got a couple of drunk lads, a couple too many Guinnesses in them.
No, the funny thing is, it was watching the Gardaí afterwards being interviewed. It was a more unusual crime, is the way he said.
Oh,
Sorry, let's
very
talk about
strange. Very strange. All right, here we go.
Because of the work that USAID did.
Oh yeah.
So it's not just a matter of things here in the U.S. There are remnants, sure. There are still people in positions of power that will do whatever they can to stymie the Trump administration. But there's the whole of Europe has bought into the ideology that we're trying to excoriate from the United States.
It's been a part of it.
Exactly. It's not just bought. I mean, you look at what's going on, and everyone talked about
Germany.
60 Minutes in Germany. That is every bit as influential as it's ever been. So it's not just the United. Like, people talk about, like, hey, get out of NATO because, well, they're not paying their fair share. But maybe get out of NATO because they don't believe in liberal values like the freedom of speech anymore.
That was like the most amazing speech that JD Vance gave on Friday. I watched that speech and I was like, this is the kind of speech that we need to see all over the
Threw
world.
down the gauntlet.
He was just like, you're not upholding Western values. You're not vouchsafing Western civilization. What are you even defending yourselves for? That was such a huge and good question.
I just want to say,
no, go ahead.
it is very base that we have a
Hey, Patrick.
Wow.
Hey, Patrick. The producer's here.
Yeah.
Hello, Shirley.
Hello, Shirley. Hi, Shirley. How are you getting on?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Oh, good.
We're discussing a Timcast IRL about Kash Patel being advanced. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video. Here we go.
president who tweets, and then that was 2016 or 2017 to 21. But now we have a vice president as well, because the current vice president is on Twitter
calling people dummies.
roasting these people, and I'm like, so it was Mehdi Hassan, I believe,
Yep.
who threw some critique over JD Vance's commentary, and he responded with, yeah, like free speech, like you shouldn't go to jail for insulting somebody, dummy. And it was amazing to see the vice president on Twitter be like, you're dumb.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
That was great.
That's a pretty interesting point. For 4 years, I don't know that I heard or saw much of the vice president. And when JD Vance got in, he's going all over the world and advancing appropriate cultural things, especially with that speech he gave in Munich the other day, which was amazing. And then he caught a bunch of heat from the EU over that. So what's your perception of that being in the EU, Patrick?
Well, the headlines over here were, I understand why Vance did the speech, but what he doesn't, I don't think what they don't quite understand is the EU did not take it well. And the simple reason, I think, as I was saying before, the EU has always been stuck with Russia and reliant on Russia. And
Right,
now
but
with
do
the
you think
invasion
that
of
do you think
Ukraine
that
last
tone
Christmas-
policing JD Vance is going to help with that at all?
No, I think Europe should carry on do what Europe does and just not give them any oxygen.
In
I'll
what
be
way?
honest.
In what way?
I think at the end of the day, Europe has come to the realization that we have to stand on our own eventually. Either we'll make our own defense treaty outside of NATO, or as
Right,
we all
okay.
come to the
But
realization
at this point, NATO, the United States is saying, look, Germany, 2% of your GDP. You're only giving up 1.5, which means that they have 0.5% of their GDP, right? Which is a significant amount of money. Germany is functionally the leader of the EU, right? That's a lot of money.
yes,
But it's going to cost them more than 2% of their GDP to generate their own force, right?
yes, they realize that, but they have realized that. That's why they're ramping up production factories across the world. But they have also turned around and said it takes time to build factories. It takes time to retool factories. Yes, we will pump the money in as soon as the factories are built. But I don't think they quite understand that all this process does take time, a lot of time. But will it? I see in the next 2 to 3 years, especially, they will reach a 2, maybe 3%. They
Right,
will.
but then they're going to have to kick over
reach
their
the 5
energy
for a long time.
processing to nuclear. They're going to have to. They're not going to have a choice because all this green
They know that.
bullshit that they have in the yeah, and I know that they know it, but you still have Macron and a ton of other leaders, the ones that aren't in the EU Council, that are continuing to push for all these green things. Windmills are bad. Solar power is still not functional where it needs to be. The only way that you're going to get the amount of power you need in Europe to make sure that people, like in Germany, a G7 country, people have to choose between energy that is now 4 times more expensive than it was just a few years back, or food, right? Your
Yes, we have the
grandmother
same
should
issue
not
here as
be in
well.
her house figuring out if she's going to pay for heat or if she's going to pay for food. But that shouldn't be the thing,
Yes,
right? The power of
No,
the
no,
G7 countries is functionally that power is cheap. That is how you know you're in a G7 country, right? Because you have power to your house, so you have air conditioning, you can shit inside, and you can order a pizza. That's how you know,
yes,
right?
but all this takes time,
Well, I get that it takes time.
and
I understand that.
that's what the German chancellor is trying to get across. Is you want us to spend X on defense? We will spend X when we have X to buy.
Right, but that X on defense they're going to spend
That's
is going to
always
be a
been the
direct
European
pay.
point of view.
Right, but that X on defense is going to be a direct pay into their own thing, right?
Yes,
And a lot
that's what
of the
they
NATO
want to build up
money,
their own European defense.
right? But a lot of the NATO money doesn't just go to defense in Europe; it goes to maritime defense, right? Maritime defense, making sure that all of the things that get to Ireland because there are U.S. boats out on the water, making sure that pirates don't take them over, right?
Well, we also have our own navy.
Well, you do in fact have a navy. I
Yes,
get that.
every European country has their own defense navy.
It's
has
a
their own
fact.
navy.
It's a fact. But your navies are not all over the world protecting maritime delivery of goods. They're just not, right? If they became more involved in that, then I could see. If we sector off the oceans of the world, right? Because we have to get our things, and the way we get our things is by boats, right? That go to coastal cities and ports, and then those things are ported in from there to Cork City, right? You need rubber from Brazil. You need X from Y and Z from this other place and cobalt from Africa.
Yeah.
And you need all of these things, right? Otherwise, your production doesn't happen, because in modernity, we need all of these products and processes. Well, process is local, but the products from around the world to fabricate them into the things that we need, want, and desire, right? And because of the free market function that we have in most places in G7 countries, the United States being the most bloated and disgusting representation of that, right? Along with disgusting ways of getting credit to buy things you couldn't possibly afford and then having to pay back the man, right? So, but right now, I mean, I think if the EU got involved in that portion of it, then I think the United States would be, and there's another problem with that too, right? We're going to let other people regulate that.
European navies have gotten involved. They have dealt with Somali pirates, was done by the French Navy. They have actually,
right, and
they have got involved. European navies have gone around the world. They have got involved in different anti-pirate.
Right, and I think they need to become more involved. And I think at that point, then we could stop being the world's police force. And I don't even know why we picked up that hat, but it just seems like every time we get involved in something, we just break it and then leave it for the next generation.
Yeah.
Right.
And the funny thing is,
that leads back to the money from the USAID. That money isn't going where they say it's going. It can't be going where they say it's going, because once we pay that money out to an NGO, it's gone. It's gone. Where did it go? I don't know. You know, there's a bunch of tunnels under Gaza. Thanks, UNRWA. Anyway, sorry. I've gone pretty far afield.
Yeah, let's circle back.
This is like a reversal, right? Because John Adams was the first vice president, and he got into office, and he and George Washington didn't agree about anything. And so he was like, well, I'll just let George Washington govern, and I'll just mostly hang out in the Senate, which is what he did. And he did a lot of tie-breaking votes. But that set the tone for the vice presidency through the ages, where the vice president doesn't really do anything. And now I feel like with J.D. Vance, Trump's like, I need a second guy. We've got a lot of stuff to do. We need two of us. You know, we definitely need four hands to get this done. And so maybe J.D. Vance is actually reversing the tradition of the vice presidency and going to actually get things done. But
Shirley, do you think that J.D. Vance is breaking the mold?
Yes.
Okay.
And I like it.
You like it. What do you like about it?
Well, I think he could be a president already with the way that he's positioned himself. I think I mentioned that to you before, that I can see 12 years easily.
I don't think he'll be able to get over Vivek Ramaswamy in the Republican primaries. No, I don't think so. I think Vivek is positioning himself by removing himself from Doge. And that was, you know what was funny about that? That was the most efficient thing Doge could have done. They don't need two guys at the head of that organization. So Vivek stepped down. Right? That was the right thing to do. You don't need four hands in that case. You just need the two hands. You just need the one fella, right? And Vivek has access to a lot of assets, like as does Elon Musk, right? But if Vivek says, I think that you can do it better, I hand it off to you, right? And when Vivek was running, he also said things like, no, I want to be the president. I don't want to be the vice president at all. Like I was saying before, J.D. Vance is a good pick, and he's super eloquent, and again, not appreciated in Munich currently.
That might change.
Well, here's the thing. I really want free speech to be the beacon, the moniker. Say what you're going to say, right? And then you have a marketplace of ideas. And when you have a rich marketplace of ideas, the concepts that have the most merit are the ones that come to the forefront, right? It is a broken policy all over the G7 countries. Immigration. Allowing awkward multiculturalism without assimilation is a failed experiment. It has failed. Obviously failed. Mr. Domino, he doesn't want his back peed on. I don't know anybody that wants their back peed on. I haven't met a person that's like, you know what, you should just pee on my back and then tell me it's
I'm
raining.
cold. I'm
Yeah,
cold.
well,
Right?
probably somewhere in it that pays good money for it.
Right. Well, pay good money
Yeah.
for it. That's fine. But don't lie to me and tell me you're not peeing on my back then. Right? If I paid for it and you're peeing on my back, come on now. Did we really go there? Is that where we ended up? Anyway.
You
So
went there.
I went there. I took the damn trip. If you pay for a product or service, you should get the product or service. There you go. That's how we'll tie that one up nice and pretty. I paid for a product or service, I received it. But no, when you have obviously failed experiments, it means the marketplace of ideas has been diluted or perverted to such a point where people cannot tell the truth because there's cancellations and I'm going to destroy your career. And then the only way that you can keep appropriate public face is by paying homage to things that are lies. And if that's the society you have, eventually it has to break down. Because if you don't deal on a basis of reality and where meritocracy and ideas that have merit aren't pushed to the front, you will fail. You are destined to do so, right?
I think this is why it's important that JD Vance is doing exactly what he's doing. He's allowing for that innate free speech, or even just speech that is challenged or challenging what the other person is saying, part of the normal discourse that's happening.
Right, and
the people get used to it, and the people can see it happening, and then they're going to be more confident in their own lives.
Right, and he has the full support of President Trump, the full support of the president. Right, and I don't think, based on the dynamic they had with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the last administration, that could even be a thing. Right, it just,
for sure not.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Never seen her anywhere.
Right, she was a ghost. She was a ghost in the wheel. I'm like, where's our vice president who's supposed to be doing things to protect our southern border? And you have Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security, knuckle nut, right, who is obviously allowing the things to happen. And he's lying to every subcommittee, every committee, the House, the Senate, lying. Like, this dude couldn't tell the truth and he wanted to give a bunch of speeches. He could, like Josh Hawley was like, here's X thing I see. What is going on? Well, what you don't see it. No. This is a yes or no thing. Did X amount of people come in? Well, we don't know. You didn't vet them. Why didn't you vet them? Why are there 300,000 missing children? Where are the children? Why are you allowing children to be brutalized the way you're allowing?
Defined people.
What does the word "is" really mean? Yeah, like, yeah. Dude, Alejandro Mayorkas was one of the worst things that ever happened to the United States. But the thing is that dude wouldn't be doing that thing unless the Democratic Party and the 0.1% of money people didn't say this is the thing that we want. Right? Yeah. So DEI and ESG does something very, very specific in companies and businesses, right? Do you know what DEI and ESG do when they get integrated into your business? Anyone? Bueller?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of businesses go broke over it.
Right, go woke, go broke. But the other thing that it does, very importantly, is it makes it almost impossible for a company to unionize if they have a super strong DEI, right, or ESG. Okay, if they're very steeped in that, it's very difficult for the workers to get together and say, I don't like your policies, right? So they get lied to and told these are all good things. This multicultural thing that we're doing. We are making decisions based on immutable characteristics that the individual can't change. I can get a college education. I can make myself more marketable. But if I can't change my orientation or the color of my skin, I don't get the same opportunity as someone else. That is racism at its core. That is not a healthy thing for society to have. It means those who are less qualified to perform a function are performing that function. What did Caroline Levitt say the other day? When you get on an airplane, do you say, I certainly hope this plane lands safely, or do you say, I really care about the skin color of the person operating this giant metal thing in the sky that is deadly? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And when the leader of these corporations, Rob Schneider, was talking about it. Rob Schneider? I think it was the comedian. It's got to be Schneider. The guy that wears the pork pie hat. Super funny guy. Anyway, he's like one of the leaders, one of the heads of the boards for an airline was saying, we want to make sure that we have, X amount of folks who are either gay, lesbian, transgender, skin color other than white, right? And that is racially motivated. And it's illegal in the United States to hire based on those immutable characteristics, right? I want the plane to land safely. I don't care. I don't care what the person operating the plane is. I just want them safe. I want them to have enough flight hours. I want them to have enough flight hours in the kind of plane that I am on, right? I want the co-pilot to also be a highly trained individual in the operation of that plane. I don't care what you look like. Land my plane. You could be pink and purple,
I like this
purple
plane
polka
to
dotted.
arrive safely, please.
Yes.
Yeah. No one
Safety.
cares what they look like.
Yeah, safety first. But the problem is there's a rot in our system, and those ideas that have merit are not being pushed to the forefront. They're not. We have a bunch of corrupt ideas and concepts that are now running the show, and trying to right this ship is not really going to be an easy road to hoe, right? Plus, a ton of federal court judges are blocking executive orders, right? I'm going to have to explain some U.S. government stuff here real quick. Okay. So you have Article 2 is the executive branch.
Right.
It is a check and balance system with the Congress, right? The House of Representatives and the Senate, and the court. Capitalized T, capitalized C.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court.
So roughly. Yeah,
Right.
Supreme Court here as well, yeah.
All the courts that are inferior courts were created by Congress. Okay. So a federal court judge is in charge of an inferior court in a system created by Congress. Congress itself has the ability to have a check on the executive branch, right? But inferior courts do not. The Supreme Court has that power. None of those federal court, those district court judges should have the power to engender or create a temporary restraining order restricting the Article 2 power of the executive, the President of the United States, from performing tasks that are specifically designed to be within his bailiwick, right? So, there's another term that they use, which is independent agency. There is no independent agency under the Constitution that cannot be answerable under Article 1, Article 2, or Article 3 of the Constitution, right? The legislative branch, the executive branch, or the Supreme Court. Those three things are the check and balance. A temporary restraining order by an inferior court should not have the power to do that at all. It shouldn't, right? And so what I'm functionally saying is there's an inferior court judge, some district court judge that issues a temporary restraining order restricting Article 2 by saying there's an independent agency that should function outside of the Constitution, which is completely inappropriate. That is completely inappropriate. There isn't any way constitutionally that should function, right? So what the Democrats and those Democrat judges are doing in the United States is they're actually asking a bunch of questions they don't want answered. Because Article 2 of the Constitution is going to slap them down and say, no, the executive has this power, right? And he will exercise his power, and you will not say no, because you cannot say no. If the Supreme Court thought it was a violation, the one that checks the executive branch when they exceed their Article 2 limits, that is the body that has the power to do that. Not an inferior court judge. Not at all.
Oh. Okay.
Input, Shirley?
Wow, you have a lot of rules over there.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. So you thought that was fairly comprehensive? I explained that well? We did good there?
Absolutely.
Well, you're the producer, so I just want to make sure that I'm not stepping across lines or saying things that aren't true. Check me. Look it up. All those things I said were factual in nature. All right, here we go.
But just really quick with USAID, when that story started breaking, I was like, wait, I remember something about this from a couple of years ago. It was in 2022 that Samantha Powers went to Hungary.
Real quick. So there's a really insidious thing they did with USAID by making it sound like US aid, right? That was a psychological tool, right? So
Yeah.
USAID
Yeah.
is the United States Agency for International Development. It is not aid as in I give you free money, except it ended up being I give you free money. And
It kind of ended up that way, really, didn't it?
right, yeah, it did. Well, and President Trump said the only way that this works like this, even though it's 0.2% of the entire budget, that's still an incredible amount of billions of dollars, right? Which means the only way that that's good, and the things they're spending money on, we talked about that transgender play in Ireland. You caught that, right? You caught that play in Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing, right? What
I
was the
didn't
name
know
of
it happened until remember you sent me the link. I was kind of going, oh,
well, yeah,
all
what
right.
was the name of that play?
Okay.
What was the name of it? Who got paid? Who got paid the thousands upon thousands of dollars for that one? Right?
Yeah, $70,000.
We're sending contraceptives to Middle Eastern countries that aren't going to use them, obviously, because the non-genocide in Gaza, where there's now more people in Gaza than there was on October the 7th. That's a strange genocide.
I was watching a video on a guy who was talking about that 50 million, and he was saying it costs less than 6 cents each to buy them. You were talking about there's what was he adding up to? 10 condoms per every individual living in the United States is what 50 million would buy you.
Wow, I just want a piece of the 50 million. I got taxes to pay. The man wants Uncle Sugar wants some of my ass.
You don't want to. You don't want to tell. No, okay, I'm not going to finish asking.
And started giving a bunch of money to independent fringe media and LGBTQ causes because they didn't like Viktor Orban and they wanted to destabilize their government. And what they said was, what Power said at the time was, we're upholding democracy in Hungary. And it's like, no, you're trying to destabilize a government that you don't like.
Right. And that's, but I think also the JD thing is because Trump is such a force, we need a JD and anyone behind him to kind of put themselves on that platform. Because the left is going to pump money into somebody by 2028, right? And Gavin's burned up his opportunity. But
that's too soon.
Yeah, right. But JD is also showing like I don't play, and we needed to see him come out there and do that as consistently. So
his
I think
AI speech was good, and his Munich speech was good.
And he's preparing like this is the future. One of the things we're seeing in Trump, I know I felt this. Him standing there, like we got to remember, he got shot, y'all. Yeah. If we think in the head. If we think like, oh, just the raids got him pissed, he got shot. What do you think he's gonna do?
First they went for his lady, and then they went
for him. And so he's coming hard, and then coming behind him is the future. JD represents the young men who are in their 20s holding up that flag during those frat boys who were like, no, you're not going to destroy my country. Yeah. And while Kamala picks this old raisin of a dude, pansy boy, and Tim Walz. We get JD Vance, who comes from who comes from literally the garbage background that you could say if you wanted to say that, right? Comes from literally the bottom, and now he's here. So he had to show literally the world, like, look, you can come here too, American kid.
And one of the great things about JD Vance is he in that speech he was talking to European leaders the exact same way that he talked to Margaret. He's like, I'm not putting up with your BS. Right. Like you're not doing that.
Well, the same way he talks to everybody, which is what Trump does too.
Which is great, and it's also good. It was all.
I think the best part about the current president and vice president is consistency. Mm-hmm. It's consistency. Yeah. There was, however, an issue. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's consistent. Like you know what you're going to get, and you can deal with that. But when you have mealy-mouthed, non-communicative people in that position, that's just bad. And it makes the United States look weak, and that's not a good deal for anybody, right? If people think that the United States can be taken advantage of, they will, and they have, to a degree that is unprecedented, right? But with that kind of consistency, even if you don't agree with them, if you bring up policy decisions you think are wrong, right? So it looks like the DOJ made some kind of deal with Eric Adams, who's the New York mayor, right? Some kind of we're going to drop the charges for this other thing. And what Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said is, look, that represents not a violent thing. That is not a violent, we're not worried about that. We're worried about violence and things that affect the American public. That's what's important.
Yeah.
If you have an issue with procedure or policy, deal with that shit in New York. You deal with it. Right? Yeah. But I think the issue they were having is there was an outside, like an international issue with it. And I think that's the big problem. but there was a Republican district court judge, I believe in New York, who stepped down because she wasn't going to sign the order to functionally drop charges on Eric Adams. And I think some of that might stem from Eric Adams was a staunch believer in sanctuary cities until New York, much like Ireland, and by the way, New York has functionally the same population as the country of Ireland, right?
I've seen the videos in New York City, and I've seen what's happened over there.
Horrible.
Wow.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So if someone says, hey, based on the merit of the concept that this multiculturalism thing isn't working, I can no longer side with the team that says, yeah, no, this is a good thing. Much like Ireland. You obviously know it's not a good thing. We know it's not a good thing.
No,
now we need to prop up proper ideas that have merit that can be discussed and debated to figure out what the best thing to do is. Not an easy solution. There isn't an easy solution to it.
No.
We're getting toothpaste back in the tube, son. That's no joke.
No, that's, as they said, it's going to be a really, really long, arduous process. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very, very hard.
Right, but the TDs and the Taoiseach, you need to talk to the Irish people. What do the Irish people want? Well, the thing they voted for. Stop putting unvetted individuals on our streets with a couple bob in their pocket that aren't working all day, that are just wandering our streets. Right?
And you see the results. You've seen the headlines.
Well, yeah, and I'm not advocating work camps. What I'm advocating is protect your fucking border. You're an island. You're an island.
Yes. It can be. Yeah.
There's a certain advantage to being an island. You can say you can't be on my island. Punk, kick you off.
The same as Britain. The British are saying we're an island. Wow. Why are we having these millions coming over here? How are they getting here?
Here we go.
Yeah, let's circle. Yeah, let's circle back.
Also good to see Marco Rubio. Which, not that I think that Marco Rubio is spineless or anything.
He's doing well.
He's doing really, really well, and he's carrying out the policies that Donald Trump wants. He's not. It's Marco Rubio is not. It does not seem like Marco Rubio has any interest in throwing a wrench into the works of the.
Yeah, Marco Rubio is not acting as an independent agent. He's actually following the lead of the elected president, which is a good thing.
Administration. He is there to do what Donald Trump wants, and that is refreshing. And it's also something that we need because like Mike Benz talks about the blob. It's State Department, it's DOD, and it's CIA, right? So that's the three.
Well, he's the one talking about the tendrils too, or the butt flies.
Bot flies.
Okay, whatever disgusting thing that is. And he's
you don't know what that is?
I don't want to know.
It's a parasitic fly that lays its eggs under your skin.
I actually want to hear the whole thing.
They lay their eggs under your skin, and you'll get like a bug bite. No, you get like a red bump, and then eventually it opens up into a hole, and the larva is in your skin, sticking its head out, looking around.
Oh God, dude. Oh, bro.
It's gross. Hey, wait, hold on. That's how I view the deep state.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. See, exactly. Now you know how I feel.
It kind of reminds me. You remember Total Recall, the Schwarzenegger one?
Yeah.
The guy's like, yeah. It's like that's what.
Have you guys ever seen like a lotus bloom or whatever?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's got all the little holes in the seed pods. Imagine that, but instead of seeds, it's maggots, sticky, big ones.
Ew.
Smiling at.
Like our viewership's gonna drop by 10,000 right now. People are like, turn it off. It's gross.
Or go up by 10,000.
No. Hold on, guys. I really want to stress this. I hope everyone at home listening, whenever
we're not the only ones that go off track sometimes.
Apparatus, that vision of bot flies are in their brain. That association is a good thing.
Yeah, I think
recoil in disgust.
Yeah, I think so too.
I've mostly thought of like roots and stuff like.
Oh, that's too nice.
That is too nice. That's true.
Flowers with trees and there's
flowers. Poison roots.
No,
when you say there's roots, I imagine like bunnies hopping around and
there's bunnies.
smiling
they have
trees singing a song.
Fang bunnies,
Wow, your
that
mind
still makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's nice. Botfly is a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
We'll sit there and watch them coming in and out of.
But this is what Ben talks about. Is it's so deep in the maggots or whatever. It's so deep that when we start unraveling it, it's like the ACA. Remember when all the legislators were like, oh, we're not going to know what's in Obamacare until we enact it. That's like we're not going to know what all USAID was doing until we cut it.
I'll pull up a picture of bot flies in the members portion,
the
Rumble Premium section of the show.
Let's talk about something.
I'm down.
I just want everyone to associate the deep state with an image of bot fly larva.
Image of gross.
I like that. Let's push that. I'm gonna tweet that later. We gotta get on top of that one.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL.
There's a lot of really, really good stuff in there. A lot
Yeah,
of really good
yeah.
stuff. So
Actually, really good points. Really good
right.
points.
Well, and that's why I
Really,
like
really good.
Timcast. Those guys are awesome. We'll go ahead and put
Yeah.
the credit in the video and everything.
Yeah, we'll put all the videos and reviews today. We'll put in the credits down below.
For
Obviously.
sure. Yeah. So Derrick
Oh,
Domino, Timcast IRL, both those podcasts were amazing. So
Yeah,
we're going to be closing up shop here. You got anything to add there, producer Shirley?
No, it was great day.
Awesome. Good dialogue.
Yeah.
Anything for us there, Mr. McCallum?
No, it's actually really, really interesting. I learned quite a lot about how many rules, rules of procedure you have.
There's a
over
lot
your
of
monitors.
rules.
Wow.
All righty. This is Alex Johansson for the A&P. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.